It is said that God created whiskey so the Irish wouldn't rule the world. You know, there's some truth to that. You can't spend much time thinking about Ireland without having Irish whiskey come to mind. And when you think about Irish whiskey, most would think about the undisputed, worldwide, best-selling Irish whiskey, Jameson. The word whiskey comes from the Gaelic word, which means water of life. Perhaps when you were enjoying some of this water, you wondered what the Jameson story was. The family motto is Sine Metu, which means without fear, and was awarded to the family in the 1500s for their bravery fighting pirates. With a motto like that, it's easy to understand how this family found enormous success. Hey everybody, this is Colonel Carson with Family Tree Nuts, and I want to say that yes, we know this video is a bit different than most of the ones we do at Family Tree Nuts. We are a history channel. Why are we talking about whiskey? Well, a huge percentage of us claim Irish heritage, and pretty much all of us do on March 17th. Why not tell the story of one of the biggest things associated with our island? If you came here because of your interest in whiskey, we invite you to check out our channel, which is full of hundreds of history videos from all over the United States, and like this one, a few other countries. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button while you're at it. This video is one of several that we have from Ireland, so be sure to check out our Ireland playlist. Now back to the whiskey. We recently visited Ireland and we just had to swing by Jameson. In this video, we'll start off by giving you the basic backstory and history about Jameson. I'll tell you about the company's leadership and how it became the best-selling of all Irish whiskey brands. Then, we will take you on a tour of the Bow Street Distillery, showing you the sights. With most of it narrated by our tour guide and my pal, Gavin Owens. You won't want to miss Gavin's extreme pride in being a barrelman. Now let's go learn about Jameson. It all started with a man with a dream, the patriarch of the brand, John Jameson I. Jameson was born in Alloa, Scotland in 1740, and he was a lawyer by trade. He married Margaret Haig, the daughter of John Haig, the famous whiskey distiller in Scotland. He came to Dublin in the early 1770s and joined the Dublin Freemasons in 1774. 4 of his sons came to Ireland with him and began stealing whiskey and even competed against their father and brothers. One of the Jameson brothers, Andrew, was the grandfather of Guglielmo Marconi, the inventor of wireless telegraphy. The Bow Street Distillery was founded in 1780, and at that time over 100 breweries and distilleries were in Dublin. In the next 100 years, the Bow Street Distillery grew to almost 6 acres. John Jameson died on December 3, 1823, but had passed the leadership of the operation to his son, John Jameson II, in 1804. John II carried notebooks where he jotted down experimental recipes and general notes about the goings-on of the operation. These notebooks have become very valuable and have documented the history of Jameson. The next up to lead Jameson was John Jameson III, who took over in 1851. John III had attended the prestigious Trinity College, as well as serving in Dublin as the Chief Justice of the Peace and High Sheriff. By the 1870s, the distillery was a city within a city, with hundreds of workers such as coopers, carpenters, blacksmiths, painters, and stonemasons. In 1875, John Jameson IV took over the company and was the last of the direct sons of John Jameson I to do so. John IV was also a justice of the peace and high sheriff, but in addition he was a commissioner for Irish Lights, who were a group of men in charge of managing the lighthouses in Ireland. Did you know that the distilling process put off so much heat that at the Bow Street Distillery it warmed up the bricks of an exterior wall, and around the dawn of the 20th century many downtrodden Dubliners sat against the walls to stay warm? John Jameson IV did not have any children, so in 1905 the leadership of the company passed to his first cousin, the Right Honorable Andrew Jameson, who was the grandson of John Jameson II. Andrew also served as High Sheriff of County Dublin, Chairman of the Irish Lights Commission, and was the Governor of the Bank of Ireland and the President of the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, and eventually became a senator in the Irish Free State. Another event of note was in the 1916 Easter Rising that began the Irish Rebellion that led to Ireland's independence from the United Kingdom. During the chaos, a sniper was positioned on the roof of Jameson. The workforce remained safe during this event. World War I created coal and corn shortages, and the distillery was forced to close from 1917 to 1918. When Jameson reopened in 1919, they experienced a boom in business and didn't skip a beat. In 1927, the famous barrelman was created. You will find him embossed on the glass of the bottles and various other places. All those who are employed by Jameson take pride in having the title of barrelman, which represents the hard work, dedication, love, and spirit that is put into making such a fine product. In 1941, another Jameson took command, George Lionel Jameson, another cousin of Andrew and the great-grandson of John Jameson II. George was also a captain in the Royal Engineers and saw action in South Africa during the Boer War. In 1961, the last descendant of the Jameson family took over as leader of Jameson. Alexander Alec C. Crichton was the grandson of the former leader Andrew Jameson and the great-great-grandson of John Jameson II. Alex was also the last to use the on-site sleeping quarters for the master distillers. Jameson ceased the production of whiskey at the Bow Street Distillery on June 5, 1970, almost 200 years from when it started there. The distilling operations were moved to Middleton, County Cork, Ireland, where it is produced to this day. The Bow Street buildings began to crumble, and in 1990 a tremendous fire damaged the historic site. Renovations were made, and by 1997 a visitor center was opened and upgraded in 2007 and continues to be improved upon. In 2018, Jameson's Bow Street Distillery was awarded the world's leading distillery tour at the 25th World Travel Awards. Speaking of a distillery tour, let's get that started. To get to the entrance, you go through the main gate on New Church Street. Or from Smithfield Square, you can pass through the tight walkways between buildings. In the courtyard, you will see a giant copper still. Next, you will pass by the friendly guard at the door and head straight back to the ticket counter. Make sure you don't lose your way, since you have to pass through the bar to get there. From here, you'll be led upstairs and greeted by your tour guide. While you wait for your tour to begin, be sure to have a look around at all the displays. And if you don't have enough time, Sine Metu. Without fear, you will be able to come back here after the tour. When it's time for your tour, your guide will call you into the first room. Here they will greet you and do a spectacular presentation about the history of Jameson. I'll turn it over to Gavin now.
Half an hour, 40 minutes, okay? So there's 3 parts to our tour. The first part takes place in here, guys, and this is going to be the history section. The second part then is the process, so it'll show you how to make the whiskey, guys. And then the third part, the most important part, is our whiskey tasting. And I'm sure that you're all dying to get to, so I'll get as far as quick as I possibly can. Now guys, there's only a small numbers today, so I'm hoping by the end of the tour, we'll all be best friends. And one way of doing that, guys, is I'll get your name, where you're from, and your favourite type of drink. Now you don't have to say whiskey, but I will tell you, you will be wrong. So guys, I'll start. So my name is Gavin, I'm from here in Dublin, and I drink a 12-year-old Redbreast whiskey. Is anyone familiar with Redbreast? Yourselves here, guys, a little too familiar? That's the whiskey from Middleton in Cork. It's gotten really popular in the last couple of years. But a bottle of Redbreast from the 1920s went up for auction here in Dublin about 3 months ago, guys, and it sold for 28.5 grand. And what surprised me most about that is a couple of Irish lads held on to a bottle of whiskey for 100 years. That's what we get on most places. So, Lovely, I'll start yourself.
My name's Becca, I'm from Kentucky, and I guess I'd say bourbon, I'm from Kentucky, so I represent.
What sort of bourbon? Maker's Mark?
No, I don't really like Maker's Mark, honestly. I'd say Wild Turkey or Four Roses, probably.
Okay, Wild Turkey's really good. I haven't had a chance to try the Four Roses yet, but...
Wild Turkey, American Honey.
And how about yourself, Timmy? That's one way to put it. And how about yourself, Timmy?
My name's Sarah, I'm from Kentucky. My favorite drink. I don't drink a whole lot.
Okay, then you're going to have 3 shots by the end of this. That might be your quota for the week then. And how about yourself, Libby?
I'm Stephanie, I'm from Kentucky, and I actually love wine.
Wine. Red, white, rosé?
White.
White, perfect.
I'm Braden, I'm from Kentucky, and I'm 18, but I like Guinness.
Friends, I'll end the AA meeting there and I'll get started. So guys, everything you need to know about Jameson is either in the bottle or it's on the label itself. So at the top there we have our Jameson name, and then underneath that, guys, you'll see our family crest and our family motto, which is on the table there, folks, and it's Sine Metu, which means without fear. And that is a phrase that's defined John Jameson's life, and it has defined our whiskey ever since. So guys, there are many characters to the history of Jameson, but only one founding father. And it all started when John Jameson set up shop here in Bow Street in 1780. So Dublin was in the midst of a boom, and its population was growing. It was the second largest city in Britain and Ireland, second only to London. And during this period, there's well over 100 breweries and distilleries operating throughout the city. Many of these will fade away in due course, however. But little did they imagine, but Dublin had just gained an institution that remained on the city's north side more than 2 centuries later, here of course at Bow Street. And in front of you here, you've John Jameson and his wonderful wife, Margaret. And they both shared the same taste for adventure. And with some hard work and a little bit of innovation, the distillery grew, as did their family. They had 16 children together, guys. It's like I've always said, whiskey makes you frisky. And in time, their son, John Jameson II, would take over as master distiller. And he'd build upon the legacy his father had entrusted to him, with hard work, constant innovation, and an unmatched quality. So guys, this is what the distillery would have looked like in the 1820s. It was spread across 5 acres, so it was quite large. And between 1880 and 1905, the distillery was running on all cylinders. And although Jameson's name is on the label there, guys, our history and heritage is shared. So if you look closely at any Jameson bottle, you'll see these 2 barrel men. You'll find one here on the back and neck, and then the other just underneath the bottle, as you see here. And these barrel men represent the hard workers, both past and present, who helped build our whiskey from the ground up. Now, Bow Street at the time was like a city within the city of Dublin. It was a bustling place filled with highly trained craftspeople. So we'd carpenters, blacksmiths, coopers, ostlers, and many, many more. Do we all know what an ostler is? No? So an ostler looked after horses, guys, and this would be them. And everyone who worked for Jameson took great pride in their work. It was often said if you had a job here at Jameson, you generally had a job for life. So guys, fingers crossed for myself. Now at its peak, the distillery employed 300 people, supporting hundreds of families across the city. And guys, by the late 1880s, it was producing 1 million gallons of whiskey, or 6.5 million bottles a year. And that, guys, is enough now to get you through one Irish St. Patrick's Day. So Jameson was shipping our fine whiskey all over the world. More and more people were enjoying its triple distilled smoothness and incomparable taste. But of course, history in the shape of military and political turmoil would intervene, and war would break out all over the world. Not once, but of course, twice. And there's conflict here in Ireland as well. I'm sure we're all familiar with the 1916 Rising. If not, it's a rebellion against the British. And due to its prime location here, this distillery was used as a fortress by the rebels. And due to the imposition of martial law, no worker could gain entry into the distillery for 2 full weeks. Where our wage books show, each worker was paid their full wages for the duration of the shutdown. And just when things are looking up for Jameson again, trade war with the British, and of course guys, prohibition in the United States would halter Jameson's progress. Bootleggers in America would label their moonshine as Irish whiskey so they can get more of a profit for it. And of course the damage this did to Jameson's name seemed irreversible. And by the 1960s guys, the Irish whiskey industry was on its knees. But drawing upon the spirit and innovation of John Jameson, and of course the family motto, Sine Metu, without fear, the guardians bearing his whiskey's name came together and decided it was time to sink or swim. And other distilleries across Ireland came to the same conclusion. And centuries-old rivalry ended in 1966 when Jameson set up shop with John Power and Son and the Cork Distillery Company to form the Irish Distillers Group. Has anyone here been to Middleton, Cork? No? Well, it's a gorgeous part of the world, guys, and this is where our distillery is now based. It currently holds 1.8 million barrels of whiskey. And although our spirit belongs here at Bow Street, our heart is firmly planted in Middleton, and it's a perfect place to mature and distill our famous Irish whiskey for an ever-growing global demand. And although our whiskey itself is steeped in craft and tradition, our masters are constantly looking at new recipes and new techniques to match an ever-growing taste of whiskey drinker. So you'll see stuff like Jameson IPA, Jameson Stout, Jameson Orange, so there's pretty much something for everyone. Now Jameson has always been a people's story. It's about our masters, it's about our makers, it's about our shakers, it's about your fantastic tour guides, and to all of you who enjoy Jameson's smooth taste. We'd like to think we're all barrel men. And guys, even though he doesn't look it, he's quite happy to be part of the Jameson family. Now folks, at the end of the day, it really does just come back down to taste. One sip, my guys, and you'll realise just why. And that, my friends, is by far the cheesiest thing I'll ever have. The cheese is better. So guys, that's the end of our process. So if you're ready, I'll take you into the next room and show you guys how to make the whiskey. So just through here, folks.
Was that awesome or what? The next room your guide will take you to is designed to tell you the story of how Jameson is made and the different flavors. I'll turn it back over to Gavin.
Now, so guys, up here at Jameson, we like to think our whiskey making is a mixture of science and art. Our masters oversee many a process in the creation of our Jameson whiskey. Now guys, as I was saying, we're now based down here in Middleton and Cork, just at the edge of the island, and it's a perfect place as it has 2 essential ingredients close by. So the first ingredient that we need, guys, is fresh running water. And when you translate whiskey into Irish, It's Ishka Baha, which means water of life. And the Dungorney River, which flows through our Middleton distillery, is the life force of our whiskey making process. Our second ingredient, guys, is barley. And we would source our barley from 100 miles or 160 kilometres of our Middleton distillery, and we would also import non-GMO maize and corn from our friends in France. Now, we use two types of barley in our production. The first type of barley, guys, is called unmalted barley. And this is barley which is straight from the fields. It still has its husk attached, so it's very, very hard. But it gives off a creamy mouth-coating texture and adds a bit of spice to our whiskey as water, and it's mashed together. And this mash absorbs as much sugar, as much enzymes, and as much of the taste of the grist as possible. We then bring it down to our fermentation unit, and here we add in yeast. And the yeast eats up all the sugar, releasing carbon dioxide, but more importantly, our friend, alcohol. Has anyone here ever been to a brewery before? Yeah, a few of you guys, yeah. So you'll notice this process is very similar to beer making. So what we have still is on the wall. So our first pot still, guys, is called a wash still. And we fill this up with our liquid wash. We then start to boil it. So alcohol boils at a lower temperature than water. So it's roughly 70 to 75 degrees Celsius or roughly 160 Fahrenheit. So the first vapors that rise up to the body, now the neck of this still, are high in alcohol. And once they get to the neck, guys, we're caught in a condenser. And this condenser chills the vapors down, returning it back to a liquid. Now this is where a lot of our American friends would stop. But we've introduced it to our second still, guys, called the faint still. And again, folks, it's the exact same process. So we boil it, catch the vapors, return it back to a liquid. Now this is where a lot of our Scottish friends would stop. But Jameson realised that if he wants to get that smooth taste, he needs to distill it a third time. So we introduce it to our spirit still at the end. And guys, by using this technique, we get what is known as pot still whiskey, which is the quintessential style of Irish whiskey making. Now in Middleton Cork, we do have a second type of distillation called column still or continuous still distillation. And this is where we get our grain whiskey from. So we use a lot more maize and corn in this production, but it's a lot lighter, it's a lot more efficient. So our pot still, guys, will take roughly 5 days, where our column still will take around 17 hours. So guys, on your tables there, you'll see 2 ionizers now. And with the column still, guys, you find it's quite light, it's quite floral, almost like a hint of perfume. Okay guys, and then you're ready to do the same with the hot still. And with the pot still, guys, you find it's a lot spicier, it's a lot more robust. It smells very similar to tequila. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tequila. The girls in Florida love it.
Yeah, it does smell like tequila.
They love the pot still so much. So guys, show of hands where who prefers now almost like it in pot still.
Now that you've gotten your Jameson education, it's time to go to most folks' favorite part of the tour, the tasting room. Gavin?
Our tour is 18 plus. I assume we're all over 18? It's hard to tell you also. I don't believe you. Do you got ID? I do. I'm joking. So guys, the 3 drinks in front of you are in shot glasses, which is perfect for smelling and analysing their drinks. But guys, just because they're in shot glasses does not mean this is a shot contest. I had a lady here who had all 3 drank before we could start talking. I wasn't angry, guys, I was more so impressed. This was 11:30 on a Monday afternoon, so I think she had a rough weekend. So guys, the 3 drinks in front of you are, the one in the middle is a leading Irish whiskey. Of course, it's a Jameson original. The one to the left, guys, is a Jameson Crested, and then the one to the right is our Jameson Black Barrel. Has anyone here tried the Black Barrel before? Yeah? Do you guys like it? Yeah, perfect. Has anyone tried the Crested before? Yeah? Did you enjoy the crested? I love it. Yeah, perfect. I swear these guys are not planted in here, guys. But I assume everyone here has tried the Jameson original at one point in their lives. Has anyone not tried it before? You've never? Yes, I swear. I've been drinking Jameson original since I was 11, so you've got 7 years to catch up on me. Pardon me? It is a shot contest. It is a shot contest. So let's take up the Jameson there in the middle, folks, and tilt it to a 45-degree angle, and then rotate it through your fingers like so. And then, guys, whenever you're ready, you can bring it back down to the flat. And if you look at it through some light there, guys, you'll see a film or a coat of residue form in around the glass. Does anyone know what that's called? The legs, yes. It's known as the legs around the world. But here in Ireland, we're a little bit more poetic, a hell of a lot more dramatic, guys. So we call it the whiskey tears, as if it's crying. So guys, so the next step now is the smell and the aroma. So keep your mouths closed and stick your nose deep in and give it a good smell, folks. Alright, calm down, it's a kid's turn. You're enjoying that way too much. So guys, I'm guessing all you're getting there is just an alcohol sort of level smell, right? Perfect. So let's do the exact same thing again, but this time have your mouths open. So another deep smell, guys, with your mouth open.
Yeah,
a lot more of the flavours will come through, guys, when your mouth is open. So it just means a lot more of the valves in the back of your nose are open and the smell can access it through. And the more you do that, guys, the more the flavours will come through again for yourselves. So guys, it's often said for an Irish whiskey that you keep it on your tongue for 1 second for each year it's been in the cask. Just means a lot of the smaller notes get a chance to integrate onto your taste buds. So guys, on average, our Jameson is 5 years old, so you keep it on your tongue, guys, for roughly 5 seconds. You guys want to take a taste so far?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Wasn't there a third one of you?
Yeah,
Okay, she knows where to go, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So guys, what sort of flavours and smells do you all get from that? Now, everyone's taste buds, guys, are different, so there's no wrong answers. But a vanilla, yes, but the sweetness comes from a grain whiskey and the quality still distillation. Has anyone picked up on a bit of spice, so like a black pepper, sort of cloves of spice? Yeah? And that's down to the unmalted barley and the pot still distillation. But you'll notice, guys, it's quite smooth, isn't it? It's very easy to drink. And that's down to the triple distillation process itself.
Oh, wait.
So guys, whenever you're ready for it, guys, you can take some water, cleanse your palates, and pick up the crested on the left.
It's up to you.
So guys, with the crested, you'll notice on the nose, has more of a sort of a sherry sort of smell. It's a bit of fruitiness coming from the aroma of the crested. Now, unlike our Jameson original, the crested is more of a sherry infused whiskey. That means it spends a lot more of its life in the sherry cask than our Jameson original. So you can really smell that sort of sherry influence on the nose. And guys, when you taste it there, it's got more of a dark berry sort of flavour. It's like figs, raisins, dark grapes, that sort of thing. Almost similar to a hint of chocolate as well.
How did it get the chocolate infused?
It's down to the barrels.
Just down to the barrels, they just
Yeah.
As I said, it's more of a sort of sherry whiskey than more of a
Sherry.
sherry flavors match up and get that sort of chocolate sort of flavor.
Secret that we do is that you can smell the chocolate.
You're supposed to hold it in your mouth for 5 seconds, roll around, and roll around.
She drank it all again.
So guys, who prefers the Jameson original over the crested? Yourselves? I like the original. And who prefers the crested over the original? Yeah?
Are you really?
You don't need to sound so shocked.
I haven't tried it, so
You're alright, mate? You're pushing my buttons today. So guys, whenever you're ready, Barry, you can take some water, cleanse your palates, and guys, you can pick up the black barrel on the right. So give the black barrel a smell, and then give it a taste for it, guys.
You like this one?
Yeah, it's really the black barrel. So guys, with the black barrel, on the nose you'll be picking up more of a creamy fudge sort of smell, a butterscotch sort of smell on back. And guys, when you taste the beer, it's going to have like a spiciness, a bit of fruitiness to it as well, folks. It's like a toasted wood as well.
And the reason I say that is because I don't want to be all drunk.
So guys, what do you all think of the black barrel? Very good, isn't it? So the black barrel is the closest flavour you'd have to an American bourbon itself. So it's got that sweetness of the bourbon. Yeah. It is the second biggest selling Jameson whiskey in America after a Jameson original. Yeah, it's really good.
The black barrel is?
The black barrel, yeah. So guys, who prefers the Jameson original of the three? Yourself, I make yourself. And who prefers the Crested? And who prefers the black barrel? Yeah, perfect. So guys, does anyone have any questions or queries in regards to whiskey, the tour, life itself? Pardon me? The meaning? If I knew, mate, I would be really cool. The best thing I can come up with is to drink as much whiskey as you can. It's not last week, not the original time.
About the process of how they make the mash or something is different than Crested?
With the Crested, it's more of a sherry sort of component whiskey, so that's the major difference. Is that it spends a lot more time in the sherry casks, and it has more of an influence of our grain whiskey as well.
Okay, there's no difference in the portion of the grain.
The black.
Did you say that they changed that?
Yes, so the bourbon, and then they're finished off with sherry cask. Crested spends a lot more time in the sherry cask, and then with the black barrel, so it's three different barrels. You have our original bourbon barrels, the sherry barrels, and then the finished off what are known as double charred bourbon barrels. The sides that are flayed down the second time,
Man, that was fun. Another tip is if you visit the Bow Street Distillery with folks that don't like whiskey, there is more to be left over, and it cannot be wasted. Like most tours, this one ends in a gift shop where you would certainly want to pick up a few items. You can even get your own private bottle made there. Finally, on the way out is the spectacular bar, decorated with the brilliant green bottles that Jameson is known for. Here you can see many parts of the historic building. By the way, be sure to see our video about the history and tour of Ireland's #1 beverage, Guinness beer. That video, like this one, is packed with information and views of the city of Dublin from the 360-degree bar on the top of the Guinness storehouse. Also, I've got a question for you. Which is better, Irish whiskey, Scotch whiskey, or good old Kentucky bourbon? Be sure to leave your comments below. Another thing, don't forget to mash that thumbs up button and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Here you will find a wealth of history videos that is constantly growing. So there you have it, a brief history and tour of the historic Jameson Bow Street Distillery, the #1 Irish whiskey in the world. We should always strive to live our lives by the Jameson family motto, Sine Metu, without fear. And remember, family tree nuts, let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.